I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. Probably one of the most frequent questions I get asked in person, and also, believe it or not, a really common question I get asked on my Facebook page is, how many crew did Battleship New Jersey have? Now, I'm not surprised when I ask a visitor, oh, you have any questions while they're touring the ship? I am surprised when people ask me, when they're on the internet and they Google me to ask me that instead of just Googling Battleship New Jersey and looking up what it says under compliment. But, like all things with me, you ask a simple question, you do not get a simple answer. And maybe the reason people come and ask me is because no two sources on Iowa-class battleships say the same thing. So, what is the complement for Iowa-class battleships? So first of all, there is basically a booklet, an administrative booklet that lists all of the billets on the ship, i.e. we're going to have this many gunner's mates and we're going to have this many radar men and this many of that, and it gives them each a number. So before the ship is ever put into commission, the Navy looks at it and it says, okay, a 16-inch gun is supposed to have 79 people in it, and a 5-inch gun is supposed to have 14 people in it, and so on and so forth. And they go through and they come up with a number of billets that ship should have. Now, is that actually the number of crew assigned? God, no. In peacetime, usually you're not filling all of those billets, and in wartime, usually you've got extra people on there. So this question changes. The simplest answer, before we get too far into this video, the simplest answer to the question is Iowa-class battleships were designed for about 2,000 people. By the end of World War II, some of them had around 2,700 on board, and by the 1980s, they had a minimum of about 1,600 on board. So why are we seeing that much variance? And why am I saying about, approximately, whatever, when there are a set number of billets? Well, I already told you that the number of billets doesn't mean that there will actually be that many people assigned or that few people assigned. And throughout the ship's career, we see the number of billets changing drastically. So when they add more anti-aircraft guns during World War II, the number goes up. When you add a fleet flag staff like Admiral Halsey and all of his people, that number goes drastically up. So that's why the ship is designed for about 2,000 people. I think the number of actual official billets is like 1,947, something like that, as built. But with the extra gun crews and the extra radar crews that are added while the ship is under construction and during the early part of the war, and then the flag staff, and then all the cooks and supply guys it takes to feed all these gun crews and admirals and whatnot, you see that number crank all the way up to about 2,700, depending on the Iowa and the exact date and which admiral's on board. Spruance's flag staff was significantly smaller than Halsey's. Lee's flag staff was pretty small. So this number is way subject to change. During World War II, the beds are fairly adjustable. A stack of racks that are these pipe racks suspended by chains, you can put 3 in a stack, you can put 4 or 5 in a stack. So even though she's designed for a certain number of people, there's still room to add more. Likewise, many of the officers' bunks were set up with like one built-in bunk and then room over them for a second pipe bunk to be put in case you get a flag staff. And now some of the ship's company are stuck in these officers' compartments and some of the flag officers are stuck in those. So you can accommodate some extra people and some shrinkage. During training cruises, like when we have midshipmen aboard, oftentimes a lot of the billeted positions for enlisted sailors are removed and those sailors are sent ashore for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and midshipmen are brought on board to take their place. So that may or may not equal the ship's crew. As anti-aircraft weapons are removed, you see the number drop through the 1950s and 1960s. And during Vietnam, without any of the 40mm guns or the 20mm guns, and with a lot of the more modern systems not added, you see the ship's crew around 18 or 1900. And it tends to go up over the Vietnam Commission. The Navy was very big on well, the whole military was very big on bean counting and saving money. The ship didn't have any of this 100 or so Marines in Vietnam that you would have had in World War II. So there's a bunch of billets you can just remove right then and there. However, they found during wartime service that it was beneficial to have more sailors. So the billets started out small and then it sort of worked its way up, which is what we see during World War II as well. In the 1980s, both because a lot of the manpower intensive guns have been removed and for cost saving reasons in an all volunteer military, you see the crew reduced. Some sources say as little as 1,500, some sources say about 1,800. 1,600 is probably more average for the 4 Iowas during this time period. And they do this by reducing the number of billets you need for the 16-inch guns and a number of other things. So like during World War II, it's typically about 79 sailors for a 16-inch gun. That's to man all the shell decks and to maintain a high rate of fire. In the 1980s, they weren't worried about that. So you see about 50 billets for each 16-inch gun. The number of officers goes down, the number of enlisted guys go down. Instead of 100 or so Marines, they put about 60 Marines on board. So again, there's some variation during this time period, but in general, it is the least amount of manning that these ships get during their whole careers. So there's a really complicated answer to a real simple question. And the easiest way to get an idea of who was on the crew, what the makeup of the crew was, is to check out this link in the description below to our cruise books. These are scanned, basically yearbooks. We've talked about them before, but if you're new to the channel, go check that link out. Really cool. It's got links for a bunch of ships, and it's got most of, not quite all, but almost all of Battleship New Jersey's cruise books. And you can flip through there and see, oh, hey, the gunnery department's got this many guys in it, and this many enlisted sailors versus officers. So until the National Archives puts all of our logs online, that's the easiest place to go and look at who our crew is, at least snapshots in specific years. So if you have any questions like this one, there's a link below to my Facebook page. There's so many comments on the YouTube channel, I can't get to all of them. If you have a specific question you want to get an answer from me specifically, head over to the Facebook page and ask. Also, feel free to leave a comment here if you've got questions or thoughts about the manning on Iowa-class battleships. What's the largest number and the smallest number of crew you've ever seen attributed to these vessels? Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support, and there's a link in the description below if you'd like to continue donating to support the museum. You can also help us out by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find out about the channel and what we do. Thanks for watching.